Votre Excellence, le président Alassane Ouattara, président de la République de Côte d'Ivoire, représenté par le Premier ministre de la Côte d'Ivoire, Votre Excellence, Monsieur Patrick Achi. Madame la ministre Nelly Kaba est gouverneur de la Banque africaine de développement, que j'appelle normalement Madame la Force tranquille. Donc, si vous êtes là, on est tranquille. Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres ici présents, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs les ambassadeurs, mon co-hôte de sommet Finances en commun, Monsieur Wana Hoya, président de la Banque européenne d'investissement, Monsieur Rémy Rio, directeur général de l'Agence française de développement et président du Club international de financement, de développement et du sommet Finances en commun, Monsieur Alvaro Lario, président du Fonds international de développement agricole, Monsieur Carlos Monteselli, gouverneur de la Banque de développement du Conseil de l'Europe, Monsieur Patrick Vakuegen, directeur général du Centre mondial pour l'adaptation, Madame Amina Mohamed, qui nous joint par la vidéo, secrétaire général adjoint des Nations Unies, Mesdames et Messieurs les présidents et le PDG des institutions de financement de développement, Mesdames et Messieurs, bonjour. Je voudrais remercier Son Excellence le Président Alassane Ouattara et le gouvernement ivoirien pour nous avoir accueillis ici à Abidjan. Je tiens à vous remercier tout particulièrement Votre Excellence, Monsieur le Premier ministre, Patrick Achi, d'être ici aujourd'hui pour procéder à l'ouverture officielle du sommet Finances en commun. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, chers amis, partenaires et délégués de la finance en commun, je tiens à vous remercier tout d'avoir pris le temps d'être ensemble, en commun, physiquement, ici à Abidjan, en Côte d'Ivoire, le siège de la Banque africaine de développement dans le pays de l'hospitalité, la Côte d'Ivoire. Par conséquent, comme nous le disons ici à Kwaba, bienvenue. Pour faire de la finance en commun, nous devons d'abord être ensemble, en commun. Je voudrais remercier mon cher ami Rémy Rio pour son leadership dans le domaine de la finance en commun. Il est étonnant qu'en 3 ans, depuis sa création, le sommet Finances en commun soit devenu une plateforme mondiale de mobilisation de ressources pour le développement. Merci Rémy de nous avoir réunis et de partager avec nous votre vision qui nous inspire. Merci Rémy. Notre objectif est de nous mettre ensemble, de construire ensemble et de financer ensemble. La Banque africaine de développement est heureuse d'arbitrer le présent sommet Finances en commun conjointement avec la Banque européenne d'investissement. Ce sommet est spécial pour 4 raisons. C'est la première fois que le sommet Finances en commun se tient physiquement. C'est la première fois que le sommet Finances en commun est organisé conjointement par 2 banques multilatérales de développement. C'est la première fois que le sommet Finances en commun se tient hors de l'Europe. C'est la première fois que le sommet en finance en commun, que le sommet Finances en commun se tient en Afrique. Je tourne en anglais. Vous voulez que je continue en français? Merci beaucoup. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, If there was ever a time to work together and finance together, it is now. The world is going through significant challenges. The Russian war in Ukraine has sparked an energy crisis, as energy prices have risen by more than 3 times, thrown Europe into energy-driven vulnerabilities, caused rapid increase in the price of food, especially for wheat and maize, and caused global inflation. As developed economies tighten monetary policies to tackle inflation, it is causing other effects, driving up interest rates, capital flight from emerging markets, and increasing debt service costs for already debt-vulnerable countries. And if care is not taken, this could lead to a global recession. Added to this is the challenge of climate change, which poses existential risks to our common world and goals for a better world. Africa, which accounts for just 3% of global emissions, suffers disproportionately from climate change, suffering losses of $7 to $15 billion a year, which is estimated to rise to $50 billion a year by 2035. To address this, the African Development Bank has fully aligned its work to Paris Agreement, devoting 41% of our total finance portfolio to climate finance. We now allocate 67% of our climate finance to climate adaptation, the highest of all global financial and bilateral development finance institutions. That's because that is the problem faced by Africa. The African Development Bank and the Global Center for Adaptation, as well explained by Patrick Vaquation, have launched the African Adaptation Acceleration Program to mobilize $25 billion for climate adaptation for Africa. We are going even further, because 9 out of the 10 most vulnerable countries to climate change in the world are the African low-income countries and fragile states that depend on the African Development Fund, which is the concessionary development financing institution of the African Development Bank Group. We have introduced the Climate Action Window for the African Development Fund ADF 16th replenishment. The African Development Fund's Climate Action Window plans to mobilize up to $13 billion over time for the ADF countries. Yet, there is more to do to close the financing gap on climate. And that's why together, as Finance in Common, we need to do more to pool our resources and leverage the pools of capital in the private sector for climate finance. As we tackle global emissions, we must do all possible to ensure energy transitions while recognizing the specific needs of developing countries, in particular of Africa. The African Development Bank now devotes 83%, probably now it's about 85%, of its financing for energy generation to renewable energy. The bank is implementing the Desert to Power to build the world's largest solar zone in the Sahel, to build 10,000 megawatts of solar and provide electricity for 250 million people. We are doing it not alone, but in Finance in Common, together with Agence Française de Développement, with the European Investment Bank, with the Green Climate Fund, with the government of Sweden, with the Rockefeller Foundation, and several other partners. Your Excellency Prime Minister, right here in Côte d'Ivoire, we are supporting Azito, 680 megawatts, and Singrobo Hydro, 44 megawatts, to provide renewable energy and support your country's drive to achieve universal energy provision. This is part of the bold ambition and goal and determination of the government of Côte d'Ivoire to achieve 100% energy access by 2030. I think that's such a great goal. Please clap for the government and for His Excellency the President. Your Excellencies, we are looking forward to COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. And as we do, we must move from talking to actually delivering. Sometimes I feel we have megawatts of talk. And the megawatts of talk does not translate into megawatts of financing. That must not be the case in Sharm el-Sheikh. Your Excellencies, as we do, we must feed the world, and I think the president of IFAD clearly said this in his statement. Because of the war in Ukraine, the African Development Bank is responding to avoid a potential food crisis on our continent as a result of this war. And that's why we launched a $1.5 billion emergency financing food production facility to support 20 million farmers in African countries to immediately produce 38 million metric tons of food valued at $12 billion. Mr. Prime Minister, we have been very fast, which includes support to Côte d'Ivoire. Within 45 days of the launch of this facility, our board of directors approved $1.13 billion for 24 countries, and we fully expect to reach 35 countries by the end of this year. Our partners have been there for us. Again, we are working in common. The Japanese International Cooperation Agency, JICA, provided $253 million, and we've mobilized additional support from Norway, Germany, and the United States of America, with many others to follow. The African Development Bank is driving the transformation of agriculture in Africa by supporting, with $779 million, the establishment of what we call special agro-industrial processing zones, already in 12 countries, including right here in Côte d'Ivoire. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, when Prime Minister Archie, you can see his very handsome face there, launched the Cinementiali Agro-Industrial Processing Zone in Côte d'Ivoire on July 27, the people broke out into what they call Kapachan, a celebratory dance in the Senofo region. They had a reason to dance. An elected Prime Minister said, and I quote you, Prime Minister, "This project is a huge initiative that is part of our ambition towards developing a new kind of agriculture." Here again, partnerships, financing in common has been central. I would like to especially thank our partners, the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, the Japanese JICA, the Islamic Development Bank, who have provided, in addition to our own financing, an additional $669 million of co-financing towards the establishment of these special agro-industrial processing zones in Africa. The African Development Bank plans to invest $10.5 billion in agriculture over the next 5 years. We're looking forward to working together with many of you to help unlock the potential of Africa to feed itself and Africa to feed the world. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, to mobilize more financing globally to tackle development challenges, we need to leverage the huge potential private capital that's out there, with $145 trillion of assets under management globally. We must work smarter. We must leverage. We must tilt private financing to complement all of our efforts. And we must reform and improve the effectiveness of the global financial architecture to address the growing development challenges around the world. Financing, in particular, to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, as the UN Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed just mentioned. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the special drawing rights of the IMF can play a significant role in this. The provision of the special drawing rights directly also through the multilateral development banks, as Remy Rio mentioned, can complement the efforts of the International Monetary Fund. The African Development Bank, we can leverage the SDRs by 3 to 4 times and deliver greater pools of financing to financing institutions all across our continent to recapitalize all of the development finance institutions, many of them who are here today, through the finance in common. And let me thank Remy Rio for his leadership in helping this with the government of France under the presidency, under leadership of President Macron. That way, we will leverage the full power of the special drawing rights for development, optimize the global financial architecture, and deliver greater development impact. And who knows, maybe we can even consider changing the name of the SDRs to Supporting Development Revitalization, SDRs. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we must revitalize hope through financing common for the youth. And that's why the African Development Bank is working together with the Agence Française de Développement to develop the youth entrepreneurship investment banks together in discussions now with other partners and governments across the continent, including African central banks, African financial institutions. Today, I had initial discussions with the President Hoyer of the European Investment Bank and his team. We're discussing with the EU Commission and, of course, with the MasterCard Foundation. The Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Banks will be new financial institutions that will provide new financial ecosystems around the businesses of the youth across Africa. It's a good place for me to recognize the great work we've done with the government of Senegal, with Minister Amadou Hott. I don't know, you're right here, who was the former minister for the economy of Senegal, outstanding minister. Please give it up to him. Thank you very much. We must revitalize as financing common hope for women. And that's why the African Development Bank, with the strong support of the French government, the UK, Netherlands, the Nordic countries, launched the Affirmative Finance Action for Women, with support also from Canada. I am delighted that last year we disbursed $534 million for women businesses. And this year we expect to disburse another $500 million, $500 million for women. It's clear to me, when women run Africa, women win. And when women win, Africa wins. We must keep working together as financing common to leverage investments. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, that's why together we are doing the Africa Investment Forum, which has now become Africa's premier investment platform to attract private investments to Africa. Launched in 2018, the Africa Investment Forum has, in 3 years, helped to mobilize $110 billion of investment interest commitments to Africa. March of this year, Mr. Prime Minister, you're aware, the Africa Investment Forum secured investors' interest commitment for $16 billion to finance what we've been talking about for a long time, the Lagos-Abidjan Highway, which will transform the economies and trade within the West Africa region. That's the power of working together. The next Africa Investment Forum will hold right here in this same place in Abidjan from 2nd to 4th of November 2022, just next month, jointly with the government of Côte d'Ivoire under the presidency of His Excellency President Alassane Ouattara. I look forward to welcoming you. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as I close, together we achieve more and faster. Let's do that in the next 2 days. We have within the financing common collective lending volumes of $2.3 trillion annually. We can deploy this more effectively to drive the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, our common humanity is at stake from what I call the 3 C's: COVID, climate, and conflict. The solutions recommended by the Le Médecin, the medical doctors, is the same. 3 F's, comprimé, 3 comprimé. Finance, finance, finance. Just finance, finance, finance. Take it 3 times a day, you'll be fine. So let's connect, let's cooperate, let's leverage, let's work in common. Let's deliver finance in common Together we can, together we must, together we will. Thank you very much, et merci beaucoup.